All right, all right, all right. We are back. We are back in the house. We are back in the house. Sorry, we are totally back in the house because this is in my house. Anyway, so the good news is episode one. It. Let's give a moment of silence for episode one. Dun, 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 boom. All right, so I just want you guys to know that last week I said a lot of things. Covered a lot of stuff. We talked about a little bit of love and worship, but I kind of talked more on the music journey, and I still want to dive into that good stuff, that good music journey. But let me just reintroduce myself again. You are listening to my Love and Worship podcast by Kingsley Case. If you want to know what my full name is Kingsley K. Charles, and I always add the Case there, the nickname that my dad gave me. Well, I said he named me, but I kept it. I used it as an artist name. I toured on it. I've published with it. So I love using it. I thank God that he, some people say, Case is spelled with a K. They say, isn't that supposed to be Kazi? So I'm like, okay, well, I'm saying it's Case. So that's what I know, and I'm sticking with it. Okay, so I'm gonna be discussing more on the love and worship experience and talking more about that today, as well as digging deeper into life on Mars and automation and Elon Musk. I mean, what do you guys think about that? That's going to be big. And then we're also going to talk about the music journey updates. We're going to talk about those things. And I think later on we'll get to addressing some of the stuff that's been happening in the news and stuff like that with the California fires. If you know anybody or anybody, you know about the California fires. And it's been a very heartbreaking for those families and those persons who are in that great disaster. And there's a lot of conflicting information that's out there. But let's just cut straight to it and just dive into love and worship a bit more. One of the reasons why, I kind of talked about it a little bit, but love and worship really started from the fact that it was like a renewed trust. Me coming back into the music industry, that was the number one thing. Like this renewed trust, in something that I know could fade. And I was like, I don't want to trust that. I don't want to put my trust in this. And so I want to hold on to something that I could really put my trust in. And this renewal I can get on a daily basis. And I don't have to keep on, chasing after this and chasing after this. And I know I can reach out and reach out and reach out. And this renewal is going to be right there. And the number one thing that stood out to me was like, well, what about God's love? And I said, well, what of it? And this little small voice said, well, God's love is consistent and it's the same love that raptured you from out of your situation and brought you back into the kingdom of reconciliation. And I was like, oh, whoa, 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 this is some information here. Do I hold on to this? Do I recognize this? Do I really want to use this in that say in a sense? And I didn't really know where it was gonna go. I was actually working on a book, and out of the book and sharing my testimony about reconciliation from the situation I came out of in 2022. I felt like if my book was read with animosity, it would be misconstrued. I think the point is that everyone has a valid opinion on what they believe to be that's happening in their lives because they know their feelings, they know the what's happening around them and how the situations happening around them has made them feel. That doesn't necessarily means that everybody stood on that ground to be like they hate you, they don't dislike you and stuff like that. And that's one of the things I always talk about in my community. When you deal with the community that I grew up in, it would be misconstrued that people don't love people here. And the truth is, a lot of the relationships, a lot of the people that I grew up with, even the people who were getting in all kind of scuffles and stuff like that, a lot of the people were not people of just born wickedness or they didn't care, they have no love in their hearts. And these are people that love so much and wanted to be loved. These are people that would rather get involved with somebody just so they can have the comfort of love to protect them, regardless of the money. Now, I mean, you gotta have the ka-ching, ching, ching if you're gonna be taking care of these ladies, you know. But I'm just letting you know that ultimately it still comes down to a comfort of love that they saw in the midst of whatever struggles that they're dealing with. And so, as we dive into this, I just wanted to kind of just lock on that to say that it's a renewed trust in love, but now in a found place, not a place of misconception, not a place of I don't know where this is gonna come from. No, I know where it's gonna come from. I know about this love. I've seen it work. And so when I came out of that reconciliation process, and I would have written my book during that complete process. And after I got to the ending of the book, my thing was that if you don't have love for everybody, you won't be able to be in the same room as people who hurt you and shake their hands and hear them have a conversation with you and talk to you. And they will not know in themselves that they hurt you. They would not know that. And nothing you can say to them would give them the information that lets them know that they hurt you. And you can see a person daily and not know that, hey, and then there's other things about love and worship. There's the things that we just love. Some people just love doing foolishness. And I say that because the honest truth is like there's a lot of things that we can avoid, and we can avoid these things easily. But we instead of us avoiding these things, here's what we do: we focus on trying to create things over and over again and trying to figure out new ways to end up, in harm's way. We find a new way to end up just breaking down these barriers of shame and creating new shame, and barriers of of bloodshed and creating new bloodshed, and then these all these other stuff. And I'm like, man, like we all just need to relax. Like we need to like really relax and figure this out. And so during my figured out journey, one of the things I had to endure, which is unlike many people. A lot of people could just hide away, run away, and they don't have to face people that would have been either affiliated with someone that's hurt you, or you might have been impressioned to hurt someone that now you have to walk into that same room, that there's just this impression out there that you've hurt these people, and that's just going to be the reality. And you have to take upon yourself that, hey, I am not going to allow myself to just be in this capsule. I go nowhere. I don't even meet water. Never meet water. Just stay in this capsule. I saying I'm waiting. I'm waiting to hatch. I'm waiting to hatch, y'all. I'm waiting to hatch. I'm in this eggshell and I'm waiting to hatch. And when are you gonna hatch? You think every single egg that's ever been birded into this world has been hatched? So my here's my thing is, let's look at this deeper. We're going to talk about this a lot because I'm going to talk about my books. I'm going to take a page from one of my books and stuff like that. But I wanted to say is that those are the things that we're talking about right now. We're talking about those things that people love, and I love to know about what's happening when it comes to technology basis, what's actually happening in automation, what's actually happening with the theatrical world, as well as what's actually happening in business. Because what happens usually in business, as far as licenses goes, restrictions, banking and stuff like that, and all these other things, all of those basically play a part of economy. This is like economy talk now. And when you get into the worship part, the worship is basically how you live. So I had to like reformat my mind, not on like what love and worship was, but I had to reformat my mind, getting out of this time frame of how people, oh, your life is ought to be a worship unto the Lord. I was like, yeah, but most people don't even live that. People always talking about your life's supposed to be a life of worship, but the average person when they leave church on Sunday, whether they're teaching a sermon or not, if somebody, step on their toe and that bad word is there, it's going to be hard for them to not say that bad word because they're already used to saying this bad word. If it's in their heart to say the bad word is going to come up on the tip of their tongue. The only thing that's going to keep that bad word from coming back is the Holy Spirit and the fact that they continually spend time in their word and growing close to Jesus, which means that they put their body under subjection, and they commit like either once a week to a fast, even if it's a Wednesday you take a half day. For persons who can't really go a complete day without food, you take a half day. And so it's a lifestyle. The lifestyle means like, what does my living add up to the way that Jesus said I ought to live? And so that was like one of those biggest things for me. And I was like, well, now that that question came up in 2022, and and my lifestyle at that point was like, hey, look, anything goes. I'm just going to try to trash myself as much as possible because I must be the most unlovable person that has ever existed, that I've gone through all the things I've gone through, and have to endure all these things I've had to endure and stuff like that. And I mean, how did I get to this point? And even if people be like, oh, I knew how you got to this point because of this or whatever the case may be. I mean, the truth is, like, there's probably a million other people who've been there and they didn't end up the same way as I did. They had a little more grace surrounding them, that they didn't end up the way that, and I know people who did crazy things, you know. I say crazy things, I mean worse. And so I had to take a serious decision and say, okay, now am I going to say I am this much of a believer and I'm still willing to sit down in the front of a TV screen knowing how much a R-rated film has a bunch of cuss words in it, and know how much scenes that are very, to cost your mind to fornicate right on the spot. The thing is, do I put myself in that position again? I mean, what kind of person am I if I am saying, "Oh, there, I am a believer. I stand for Jesus. I love Jesus. I really do." And I turn around and I go on the porch and I said, "Well, it's only weed. It's only weed. It's only weed. It's not, you know, I use it to relax. Doctors say I could have it, you know, and if you didn't need it, and it's not really, for those persons who need it medically, thank God that that substance is there to help you. So this is not against people who need this thing medically, like, that they clinically have to get this thing, whatever the case may be, because they tried everything else and this is the only thing that eases their pain, especially going through what they're going through, either if it's chemotherapy or whatever else, some other ailments that is causing them pain or just a lot of distress. So I'm not knocking that. What I'm saying is that if you take a situation where you saying that I am committing to this lifestyle, which means I'm gonna do it the Jesus way. I didn't say do it the Moses way. I mean, Moses did some things. I didn't say do it the David way. David did some things. I'm not asking you to do it the Paul way. Paul did some things. Not even Peter. I'm not asking you to do it Peter's way. And definitely I'm not asking you to do it Judas's way. Nobody wants to do it. Or nobody wants to do it the Jezebel way. What I'm saying is that you have the best option in front of you. This is the one living option that has risen from the dead option. You know, the only one. Out of all of the other gods that's ever existed, this is the only one. Okay. Um, until somebody tries to supernaturally create another religion. And we'll get into that topic later on, but I'm trying to finish here with this love and worship, digging deeper to why I realized that, hey, I have to really make conscious decisions. I use a really strong one. One of the things that almost tarnished my, and I remember my fiance at the time before we had broken up, and God, I hope she doesn't take this wrong if she listens to this or anything like that. But this is nothing to like tarnish who she is as a person. This is only to just to address something. So when we were first met and you know talk about it and talk about struggles and everything and all stuff, I mentioned one of my struggles as a childhood and my addiction, and one of those was pornography, and that almost like drastically destroyed my life. When I went off to school and stuff like that, it was really not really a part of my journey during when I lived in the US. For some odd reason, when I moved back home with the mental distress of just having to deal with culture, the culture shift. I mean, because, I had to grow back into the culture that I was a part of, but it almost felt like I never left Nassau. But it was just that where I lived away and how things were done, and it was so much faster, and I was able to get what I could get done away in 2 months. In the Bahamas would take me 3 years, and I always was like, wow, why is it so that way? And now, what used to take me 3 years, now it's taking me almost the same amount of time or less amount of time in the Bahamas. And it's ridiculous. The Bahamas just has a way of just like shifting. But back then, I didn't realize that distress, and because it was an scapegoat for stress in my life. And that became like a gateway drug, which was pornography for me, to go into stress. And it was never ever about I'm in love with this or anything. And it was I don't ever thought it was that. There was absolutely no connection. There were some points where it got to the point where I got so sick, and I had to confess, like I was going through a rough time or whatever the case may be, and a couple things like because of doing bad things in a past life, something like that. What happened was that some informations don't change, and some habits, because you change and you made those commitments to change, and I let her know. I told her, I confessed to her the little slip up, and I just remember how appalled she was. She was like destroyed. She was like, how could you do that? How could you do that? I mean, that destroyed her. She said, I thought you were done with that. Like, I thought you were over that before you met me, blah, blah, blah. And I'd be the only one. you know? And I was like, wait, she's right. She's should be that completely, you know? Um, and, but me being me, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be overbearing. I don't want to reach out to you and talk about what I'm dealing with and stressing. I want to reserve this because I don't think you want to hear it. We hear all this stuff all the time that, hey, look, don't talk to me. Go talk to a therapist. And I was like, were there therapists back in the day when Jesus was around? Who was the therapist? It sure wasn't the priest. The priest was just getting the information and say, oh, well, pray this many times, whatever the case may be. Or go here and do this walkabout, or go in the river and go wash. But who's the persons who they're talking to? It wasn't no shrinks back then. It sure was no shrinks. And then people always be like, you need to go directly to Jesus and get on your knees and pray. I say, yes, but that relationship has to be developed. And sometimes people who love you have to walk you through those stages of life when you need them most. And the problem is that we have to know the signs. And so I realized that, hey, in order for me to be the man that she always knew I could become, whether we ended up together or not, or whatever the case may be, in order to me become that and be an incredible father, friend, husband, be an incredible man of God to a body of people, number one thing I have to do is change the way that I'm living, what I'm putting into my system, what I'm reading, what I'm listening to. I have to just make that commitment and stay with it. And ultimately, it's not going to become a struggle. Yes, you're going to have to put your body and your mind under subjection every single day, but it's not going to be this thing where it's just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world, the universe is going to end, oh, we're not going to be able to get through this. No, that's not it. The truth is, you're going to be able to overcome, because now you're going to make other commitments. One of those other commitments you have to make in order to have that worship. And it's, and I'm talking about, like, when I used to talk about the past addiction, and thank God it's in the past. But when I use that whole topic, I'm talking about what people worship. People worship those things. I know people who, I have friends who worship money. Like, they go to church, but they worship money. Like, I know some people. I'm not talking about my local church now. I mean, I ain't talking about the church I'm attending right now. I'm just talking about people who I know that attend churches. Let me be clear. It might not be the local church that I go to now. What I'm saying is that I know some people. I know some people, and they're right there. They're right there. They come into church every single Sunday, and the Lord putting it on their heart and saying, hey, look, you need to sow a seed into this person's future. And that same seed that you pour into this future will multiply. It's like the king who decided that, hey, look, I'm going to sow these talents into these guys. I'm just going to sow into their futures and see what they do with it. And there's people who waste it, but they used it. And other than somebody taking the talent, just burying it, and not doing anything with it. My thing is, you try, and if you fail, try again, but a lot of people who are in that system, they come in and they come in and they come in, do they really love God, or just love the idea of that, hey, look, if I go to church on Sunday, because of grace, God is going to see me here on Sunday, and because he loved me so much, because I'm here on Sunday and I'm here every other Sunday or whatever the case may be, and I look good, and the congregation likes me, I could smooth things over, and then I just go about my business. I go make my money. I make all this money, and I come to church and I just act like everything is cool. But my heart is really with the money. If I don't make this amount of money, I'm not going to be able to survive. If I don't do this thing, I'm not going to be able to get through my day okay. I'm going to stress out. I'm going to cripple up. I'll die, I'll wither away. And that, my friends and family, um, and love and worship team of people and new subscribers, if you're going to subscribe, please subscribe. Come on through. Join the club. What I'm going to say is that, listen, everything about love and worship has to do with a lifestyle, and not a projection. No one is projecting on me to decide this. This is a personal commitment. I take this commitment. I make the steps that I need to make in order to survive. A lot of people say, survive? What do you mean? Is that bad? No, I mean, I'm being serious. I take these steps and I walk in the direction, in that only direction that I have to in order to survive. And because of that, I'm more happier. Man, I am rejoicing. I am I I don't know where the money's coming, but maybe it's coming. I don't know. But all I know, whether it comes or not, I am in a place of where I am content, I am grateful, I am complete, and I understand that it is a beautiful, it is a beautiful and amazing journey. And I would wish that for everybody. And I wish it for everybody. And so, that's I want to leave you with this. We're talking about love and worship, so I just want to leave you with this snippet. I know we gotten a little dip in that and stuff like that, but I'm gonna dip a little more in those other subjects. But here's a Bible verse I want to leave with you. And it's from 1 Corinthians 16:14. And it says, "Let everything you do be done in love." And I always thought about that. It's like, let everything you do be done in love. So, man, when it's time, like in certain places where, you know, um, some parents try to find new ways to discipline their kids, or they'd be like, well, we can't talk to them, so we tell them, hey, go in your room and wait 5 minutes, because if we put them in there for like 20 minutes or so, they'll call the cops, and then we go to jail because we're abandoning our kids or something like that. I'm like, what? I mean, what are we getting into? I mean, is this, there's a lot of stuff that's out there that's happening around the world. And I'm like, man, I mean, do the kids need to learn this too? Do they need to learn that everything that they do, even to their parents, that they should do it out of love? They should do it in love. They should do things that represent love towards a person, even people that would cause harm to them. I was like, well, gee, whew, that's a tough one, you know. But don't forget that out of the scripture, You live by the sword, you die by the sword. Well, maybe, that was a saying. But what I'm saying is that let's kind of refocus our minds. This is kind of stuff we're going to be talking about. And if we're a commercial break, another commercial break. So one of the things I want to say is that, hey, my book, The Course of Life, it's still out there. You can get it right now. It's on the Apple bookstores, and you can download it. It's free. All of my books on Apple bookstores are free. You can go look up the books by typing in Kingsley Kendrick Charles Case with a K at the end, or you can type in Kingsley K Charles Case, and books should come up. So, um, um, I hope you enjoy that book. It's a very impactful book. It kind of gives it's it's really a revised review of where I'm at, and we'll dig deeper into that book because that's one of the things I want to talk about in our third podcast. That's one of the things I want to talk about is the book, and just addressing some of the things that I mentioned in the book and highlighting some beautiful things in there. And I know a lot of the persons, like, like a lot of the expats that would have lived here in the past or something like that, that persons might have read the book and say, oh, well, I didn't know we treated your father so poorly by not giving him a retirement. And I'm like, well, I'm not pointing out that. I'm saying that, hey, he served you 20 plus years or more. Some people did it the 40 plus years and nothing. No package, no retirement, nothing, And I was just like, well, I don't know if that's the culture. I don't know if that's the way of things, but I know that I've seen others who've done it. And so if if somebody else can do it, they're not doing it for everybody else. I mean, they're doing it for them. So their family is going to be the ones who are going to get blessed. And so I'm just saying that when you do something, do it in love. Don't do it with animosity. I did it in love to recognize how great of a man my father is. My father still served those persons who didn't do those things, still to this day. He's still willing to, you know, take a tire off his car and give it to somebody if he had to. You know what I mean? I'm not asking him to do that by any means, but I'm just saying, like, that's the kind of person he is. Incredible man. But hey, let's dig in to this next thing. The next thing we're going to talk about is life on Mars. What? Life on Mars. Man, I'm still trying to get in touch with all these possibilities of life on Mars. I mean, I think one of the biggest thing is maybe the religious conversation. A lot of things that I wonder about is whether or not, like, for one, as we contemplate moving to new worlds like Mars, because there's people, they're just trying to try everything. I think it's fascinating to consider how faith and spirituality might involve. I think I'm not saying that I'm going to shift from Christianity and go and join another club. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I think it's very fascinating that we should consider these things of how this society or this now new thing is going to evolve. There's already new schools, not of thought going on, but new schools of practice that are in place where the number one thing they're teaching you is not ideology. They're just teaching you. They're just teaching you. They're giving you education. They're not shoving any ideology down your throat. And that new form of school is now taking precedent in these times. It's becoming more digital, digitally automated, and a lot of people have a little more access to it. So let me say that again. The technology that's out there, it's it's so advanced in a way that people now have access to information, and without all the other stuff, all the opinions and all of the ideologies, all the thoughts that are added to all these things, and without facts, without resourcing information from the past to show conclusions of how you derived at this. I'm going to read this again. As we contemplate moving to new worlds like Mars, it's fascinating to consider how faith and spirituality might evolve. Will Christianity find a new expression on Mars? Or will we see it as a continuation of the old? The foundational principles of faith, like love and compassion, might remain even as we navigate new frontiers. I think it's a little fishy because then it's a selling concept. Now I pinned this together, but I'm saying it's a it's a concept that let's be open. It's an intriguing invite to say let's be open to these other possibilities, you know, or I would say you leave it up to your imagination to wonder what those possibilities are. But as we're digging into it, one of the things I wanted to kind of address was that moving to Mars might sound like the ultimate adventure, but imagine the space traffic. Here's somebody says this. Honey, I'm stuck behind a Martian rover again. That one actually got me. So I think we kind of I dig into a lot of it, talking about what Mars would be like. But I think my greatest concern right now is not the fact that Mars is like beyond something. My biggest concern right now is that we have an opportunity to create a new safe haven for humanity, and we talked about the lack of resources that are happening around the globe, as well as there's a mass of resources on Earth. Yeah, but with the population's growth, and I don't know if that's why viruses exist, because I always wondered about that. I mean, and when you look through all certain books that you read in life, and some of you, I hope that you won't have to read those books. I really do hope you won't have to ever meet a book like that where these discussions are being had in books. You have discussions that are being had in books about pretty much creating natural disasters, or talking about diseases, or talking about decreasing populations, or ways to decrease populations. And these rules of thoughts worked in the past. They were so normalized that this was something that world leading governments did way back in the day. And so the fact that these diseases exist is because that the wealthy, I'm not saying the quote misquote me. I'm saying the wealthy, when they become that, when they get to that position of power and influence, um, they're also wanting to protect themselves too. And so sometimes we go and we try to create some sort of win all solution for everything. And in that process of trying to combat natural diseases, or stuff like that, that may have a cure, they're somewhere out there. They're somewhere out there in Eden. um, and possibly wherever Eden is, that's where all the cure is. Wherever Eden is, that's where all the protection is, and we're being held out of Eden. Um, but they figured, well, since we are made in God's image, let us not only recreate man and women by multiplying, let us also create new cures, new ways to grow things and do greater works. And they follow that Jesus line to the T. We are going to do greater works. You are going to do greater works than these. And I'm always like, yeah, but you know, you know, you're looking at it in a physical sense. You're not really thinking about it in a spiritual sense. You're not thinking about it also in you know omnipresent sense. You're not thinking about it in a deity sense. But here's the question. So what happens when the Mars thing becomes a reality? The question is, will there be Christians on Mars? I mean, it's. I mean, the whole discovery of Christianity was on Earth, um, and Christianity says that God has the whole world in His hand. But the question is, the first building that goes up, the first formation that goes up, the development, the growth, the life, plant life, societal life, human life, birthing life. How does that dynamically, where does it get us? Because not I mean technically, if we're gonna talk about living on Mars, there's people living on different stations in space. There are people, they have space stations. You have um you have a station that's possibly on the moon, and we don't want to get into that deep discussion there. um but there is a lot of very interesting information that's out there. The fact that um, I will release that information in the next one, though, because I feel as if like I give too much away. But I just wanted you guys to think about that. Like, what would that mean? Because now, is there gonna be a deity named God on Mars, or is it gonna be founders? Is it gonna be the founders, and they're gonna be known as the deity of Mars? They're gonna be the found. Because think about it. Once they're gone, and the people who know their faces, we're just thinking like 200 years from now, or whatever the case may be. People who know their faces, or whatever the case may be. Let's say those factors become erased. A new society, people, different life that's going on. Um, Earth is known as the place, a workplace. Mars is known as a place for conclusion, retirement, or start anew, build your family, live here, win the lottery to go move to Mars or whatever the case may be. While automation rules over the Earth realm, and now you have separations of power and stuff like that based upon who controls automation. I mean, if automation is going to be that big of a deal, and we're talking about automation and Elon Musk, I mean, think about it. Automation is more than a trend, it's the future. I mean, while some resist, it is a paving the way for incredible advancements. I mean, just think about it, embrace it. I mean, it's basically here. I mean, we almost like, I'm not saying say yes to everything that comes out. I'm saying that some part, even one of the things I learned with serving in ministry and dealing with our youths, is that eventually, um, they're going to be at a stage where most of the stuff they do is automation. Like when you need them to come up with a sermon, when you need them to go and share something, it's going to be from some sort of automation. When you need them to talk on experiences, they might be talking about an experience that never even happened, you know, or parallel experiences. So, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the auto industry. Just think about automation in the auto taxi industry. Think about that right now. If you are an auto person, the number one you're trying to think of as Ford right now is trying to make sure you have the licensee or the advanced personnel to create an automated vehicle that not only can surpass the tech that's coming out right now of self driving and all this other stuff. I mean, and taking you wherever you need to go. Everything is mapped out in the U.S. Everything just about in the Bahamas is just about completely mapped out, except for all these off roads, and even those off roads are mapped out. With the amount of satellites now that exist in outer space, think about that. The amount of satellites that exist in outer space, it is like the potential of having the greatest arsenal that's ever been given to a person or one person or one entity. Just think about it. Now you have everyone's address. You have, I mean, well, all the places where you have the ability to, like, the licenses to be in those local areas, but basically you have everyone's license plate. All their process information, all that information is going through something. And so all these encrypted stuff that people talk about and creating this encryption and these safeguards and all this stuff, they're talking about all these safeguards because they're saying that, hey, look, technology is advancing in such a way that eventually every family home is going to have a personal server. Every family home. That server is the server where all that whatever information is just there. It's not going to be on a cloud. It's not going to be anywhere. It's going to be that server has a backdoor stream to a network. But the backdoor stream that has to the network is on a port that's also connected to a network. So which means that in order for somebody to hack into that, you got to get through the first backdoor to get into it. Anyways, it's kind of a little deep here, but the formality with that is that it's, if you want people who build these things, they built these things and they're the ones technically hacking these devices, or their ex-employees are the ones hacking these devices, because nobody who doesn't go to school just wakes up one morning and say, hey, I'm going to go and hack into the Pentagon. I am going to get into the Pentagon and, without having to worry about this. And these are the people who build code. These people who build dummy websites. These are people who built these things. And so I'm talking about What's that means? Embrace it because you have to become aware. Go look it up, learn more about it, but be ready for when you travel to London, you're not going to be getting in a regular taxi. Your car's going to pull up and say, with a smiley face, do you need a taxi? I mean, if you go in certain places on on the east side of the world, there are already places where automation is like it's serving, and it allows people to have more time to do other jobs where they can also create incomes for themselves. You know, now instead of me um, driving around in a taxi all day, now I own an automated taxi service and I can go spend more time with my family. I could also, while the system is making money for me, I am basically in a business meeting on trying to purchase a home or I'm trying to expand another opportunity. There's a lot of other access that's out there. The thing is, if it's going to be $1 trillion, um, it's, I mean, trillions of dollars. This is $1 trillion. It's not $1 billion. We're not talking the $1 billion industry. We're talking about $1 trillion industry. These are trillions. So we're talking about trillions. That means that globally, automation, whoever has the licenses in these things, the patents in these things, the people who are creating the advanced tech that needs to go into these devices, people who come up with the catchy phrases and names that have to be licensed or paid licenses, people who end up having shares in these entities. Those are going to be the people maybe moving to Mars. I mean, because I mean, you're looking at the persons who are billionaires now. Let's just say the persons who are billionaires now, some of them may not be billionaires in the next 10 years from now. And I'm not saying because they just decided that, hey, I'm going to lose all this. No, some people end up giving away a lot of their wealth of their end of their years, and because they understand, just there's is reason in that as well as there's a circle of life that's also involved with that. And one of the things when you're gifted with that much wealth over a period of time, which means that there's no possible way you can spend it. Um, I mean, I'm pretty sure Warren Buffett has an idea of how he's going to spend every penny down to the fraction of a penny, or or the seventh of a penny. I guess I use him as an example because I mean, is he has a genius mind of just understanding that, hey, look, after you get to a certain stage in your life and you've done all this stuff over all these years, then you employ people who can do the same thing as you do or at an advanced way. And then also you take part and find out the new things that are going to come aboard that are actually going to be advantageous to your growth, or helpful to helping you to be not just a better boss, but also a person. A person not just in love with money, but a person that's in love with the fact that the idea of accomplishment happens with small steps, and they just kept on. The steps look so much bigger from the outside. That looks like these huge, humongous leaps, because they've been doing it for so long, but these steps are smaller for them. The higher they go with the amount of monies that they make, the other day, Elon Musk, I think they were saying that network of 400 billion, and I was like, well, you know, we have a network of 400 billion. I mean, now we not only know Mars is not only a possibility, we know we know a lot of people who know about the possibilities, and people who have a little more information and research on Mars are going to be thinking about those possibilities. So, I just think it's a wonderful thing to talk about. I mean, we've been talking about this all the time, and crack some jokes about being on Mars and stuff like that. But and in all reality, I bring it up because I just wonder about that side of things, because you know, are some people looking forward to it? Are are people around my age, um, will be around to see it come to fruition? Is that a great possibility? Well, I'll tell you right now, just based upon automation alone, based upon the automation technology alone, based upon what the AI, Open AI, Chat GPT, um, X, Grok, Meta, what is basically happening right now, just here on Earth. If you haven't noticed it, we have already crossed over. Some of the movies that if you are if you are under 60, and if you're under 60 and over 25, there's a possibility some of the movies you would have watched. Depends on your taste in movies. But some of the movies you will watch when it comes to, sci-fi movies or these intellectual based movies or technology kind of films or something like that, like iRobot or whatever the case may be, or maybe I can't say that. But not that it's speculation, but if you look at what's happening over all the years, people have been creating these things. And some people do it for show. I mean, I'm pretty sure now you see these things in the murals, or you go down some sort of Hollywood, Los Angeles, where the stars are, and more than likely you might end up seeing like a robot walking by asking you if you like to come inside to a restaurant. I mean, that's a possibility now. But I'm pretty sure on the east side of the world, those things are happening like normal. No, it's normal for me to check my phone while my car drives me to work. I don't think you can still do that in some places in America or most places in America, or I don't think you can do that in Bahamas. But the whole law with texting and driving, you couldn't text and drive. Now, what are you gonna do with that law? How is that gonna? This is the thing I'm talking about. A lot of things. There's so much stuff, and then it leaves the other question. You know, because of this now is automation. That means that, do I still get a ticket because I decided to let my car drop me home, even though I was drinking? That's the question. Now I don't drink. I don't drink alcohol. I was just using an example, and I'm not promoting alcohol. I'm not promoting drinking, but I'm saying that if you look at what's happening in that regard, if you have so much government, all the restrictions, it will make this $1 trillion industry almost impossible to take off. You know, but with the right people in place, it could take off and not only be beneficial to one side of the world, but it could be beneficial globally. And I mean that. I literally mean that. Like, you won't have taxi drivers ripping you off anymore. It would be the automated it'll be the automated taxis. Automated taxis that just have this secret route that they decide to take you on, this route, the longest way possible to take you to their destination, and you're like, no, I don't want you to go to York and Fort Street. I want you to go to York and Clifton. But it's just so much stuff that you know. I mean, creatively, if you think about it, if you're not a person writing the script, you're not a person who's adding all the information to the AI data. If you're not the person, the thing is, the AIs now, if there is a million people or more using OpenAI, and that's information that it's getting, that means that just the free portion of it, or even the advanced portion of it, is going to be absurd this year. Last year was one thing, but this year alone is going to get very absurd. because now the advancement of human life is probably going to increase, because now that concern, that headache, that nervousness or something like that, things that you need to help you train and teach a child that's struggling at something, now you have help if you're a single parent, because you don't have a direct help. And now you want to go to the teachers, and some of the teachers are so slam, and maybe your kid is just won't be able to learn from them the way you think they would. But if you're creative as a parent, you would take that route and say, "Hey, look, let me try these other routes and see how this works with the child." And I know a lot of people are like, "No, I don't want to introduce my child with technology." You know, I'm like, whether you introducing them to technology or not, they go to school, so technology is there. Unless you didn't go to school and they're homeschooling it. Now if you're homeschooling your kids, now you have an advantage. Now you can teach them this stuff, but also withhold them from having certain access so that they see it as um, an entitlement. Like, I'm entitled to this. Um, and instead of seeing it as, hey, it's a resource. When you see something as a resource and you know what the resources are for, you use it as a resource. But when you see something as an entitlement, you see it as a need. You see it as like, I need this. I have to have this. I have to go and get this. This need to be a part of my lifestyle. And it takes you away from the love of worship lifestyle. Um, Before I close, I just wanted to address something I saw in the news. I really thank you guys so much for listening so far. One of the things I saw in the news that really hit me hard was that, um, the California fires. So fires in California, I honestly I've seen a lot of this stuff before. I mean, even with living abroad, you hear about fires and stuff like that. Then you watch the news, but then at this stage, day and age, at my age, I have friends, people I know that live in some of the Los Angeles areas and stuff like that, and then you just, if you love people, I mean, you care about, regardless if these are mean people or good people, none of that stuff matters. And not, even a thing, even if something was tampered to make this happen, even if it was just a fact of negligence or a fact of limiting resources or cutting back on reserves to assist, and all those speculations that are out there. There's so many things we can speculate. There's so many things we can speculate and talk about, but it does not take away the fact that these families now have to all bounce back and get back on their feet. And one of the things I was like, with Dorian when it happened in the Bahamas, those families had to do the same thing. And I'll tell you this right now: our government back then was greatly unprepared. They were not in a position of facing a natural disaster. And people was like, yo, they borrowed so much money. They had to borrow so much money because they were not ready for a natural disaster. A disaster that nearly cost the Bahamas possibly close to $1 billion or more. I mean, what I'm saying is that a lot of people don't realize that things happen, and they don't happen just for a reason. That that happened. That happened beyond our control. Things happen beyond your control. And do I want to go to somebody when this thing has happened beyond their control and like be like start talking about, oh, the government this, the government that, government this, government that? I mean, you can get very upset, very angry, because now the families who are frustrated with the insurance companies that have decided to cancel insurances. It's just, I mean, gee, you know. So it's a lot of stuff, like, but there's a lot of speculation too, because like, how do I know that's what happened? How do I know the company didn't try to locate a missed payment and then decided to just cancel while it worked opportunity wise for them. I mean, if I'm that company and I'm trying to figure out ways to make money, and my only focus is to make money and earn money from hard, honest, living people and citizens, then the thing is that's what my focus is going to be on. It's never going to leave not wanting to make money and in turn put money in my pockets. But here's the thing: it does not solve anything for a company that has the ability to rescue, and I'm being serious, like the bailout, rescue, and take care and meet this need in a greater way, to renege on their their promise. I think, and I'm gonna be really clear with this. I think if they have compassion and they fulfill the promises of every single person that they've insured, and even the ones that they decided to cancel during the fires and stuff, and say they can't on all of these claims. They have to cancel these 900 or 1,000 claims, or whatever. My thing is that I hope they would have compassion, that they would go in there and rebuild these people's homes for free, because a lot of these people invest, like when they purchase these homes, they invest hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they invest, some of them invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in insurance. I mean it's ridiculous the amount of money people pay on insurances now. But I just wanted to focus our energy not on the anxiety of what's taking place. My heart was crushed. I saw that and I was like, any disaster that's happening around the world, and I sent out an open letter and talked about it and say, look, once the world gets to a certain point of where, it starts with the natural disasters, and you know, from the onlookers that are listening, they're going to be like, oh, it's only speculation that these lead to another recession, or at least lead to something else. They lead to government strain on resources, natural disasters, and if and yes, taxpayers deserve to be taken care of. Taxpayers deserve to be taken care of and provided for. But this also comes down to whether or not we are proper businessmen and businesswomen. Are we making decisions not to qualify our advancement, but are we making decisions to protect and serve the people who put us in power? And I think that's where it really hits home. But at the end of the year, what happens to when a natural disaster occurs? Now the banks, now the insurance companies, now the government. I mean, and now you have a debt ceiling, and then you have all this other stuff that's going on, and so, and this is happening around the world. Keep in mind now, whenever something is increased, that means resources for that increase are coming from elsewhere. And if you're not increasing that, then you're extending it. And when you're extending it, extension just means that, hey, look, let me be able to use those resources I got to use right now so that I can rebuild everything I got. People do it all the time. People ask for extensions on loans and stuff like that all the time. People who've owned homes and stuff like that, and they were in either a remodel phase of their home, and they were like, "Hey, look, I am gonna have to, if I could use this 6 months of payments, I could redo this to my home and rebuild it. Now my house would, I'll add this thing. Now my house would be at this higher value." Or someone says, "Hey, look, I need to take a break from this, and I need 12 months. In 12 months' time, I'll be back and at it and about this business. And it's probably because transitioning from one job to another job, or making a different location. You're living somewhere else, or or another thing, you're having to go to some sort of school or teaching or something like that, or some sort of thing for a little while, and you need to have access to resources that you have during that time, and not be broke, not be down to like the last dollar on your account after your mortgage comes out. My thing is, when you think about all that stuff, people need something to believe in. So, in the face of disasters, we find strength in unity and resilience. I mean, it's only together we rebuild and emerge stronger. Like, I mean, that's one of the things that I always want to encourage people with. You know, we cannot build and do all this stuff by tearing this one down, tearing this one down, doing this, that. Ah, man, this, and that. Address those things. Yes, address those things. Really address those things strategically and say, hey, look, this was the cause of it because this could have been avoidable, but that is not my focus. I'm not here to talk about what could be avoidable and all, because my number one focus is trying to reach and find out the dynamics on how to rebuild these homes, or what we can do to comfort those families now that are dispersed, or persons who didn't make it. I mean, so, and then how do we move forward? Like, what preparation and adaptations are, are we using those key points? Are we gonna prepare, and adapt? Yes. So, it would be very assuming for me to say that no government that's ever been in place has ever assumed that a natural disaster can happen. And if you're accustomed to fires like in California, then you would know that, hey, this is a possibility. We've seen it in the movies, we've seen it in the TV shows. I mean, not fireproof. That's not about that. I mean, yeah, fireproof is about fires, but it's a little bit more than just fires. It's about a husband and wife. A husband who really comes back into the fate. One of my favorite films has ever been written, and I also love the Chosen Ministries too. The Chosen, that's awesome. I think season 5 is going to be amazing. This is what I'm talking about. You're choosing what you watch and pour into. You know, I guess I'm just saying that, by learning from our experiences, we can build a more resilient future. And so it's not about, hey, you've already experienced certain bad things with some people. You've already experienced some bad things with insurance companies, with banks and stuff. You've already experienced some really bad things when we went through the recession, when we went through COVID, when we went through the scare for malaria, when we went through the scare for this advanced strain of flu virus, and then this thing about the bird flu. So you were already at a point now, and you are at a point right now where you are very resilient. If you are a survivor, I believe that you're resilient. I am proud of you. I'm proud of you standing up. I'm proud of you choosing to live, to continue on. You lost everything. Even the people in North Carolina. So many people there are still recovering. And I'm not talking about recovering as in a building. Some people, I mean, we just want to be mindful here. And talking about love and worship, we just want to talk about the things that we know are gonna bring us all together. And that's what I want to do. I want to talk about things that bring us together. The people who are intellectual, they want to come talk about things that intellectual want to talk about. I want to talk about life on Mars. I want to go in a deeper way on life on Mars. But can I go in a deeper way on life on Mars? Not yet. Not yet. I think it's a possibility. It's just more to come. But I am excited, though. I'm really excited. And this another commercial drop. What a commercial drop. Oh my gosh. So before I go into commercial drop, let me talk about what we covered. So we just talked about love and worship again, just continuing more on, where I've worked on that, life on Mars, automation and Elon Musk, just talking about how it's good for everybody, just getting to know more about it and using it as a resource and not as a need, and finding out ways to be resourceful with the new advancements in the world than looking at it as this is the way. When you look at things as this is the way and the only way and stuff like that, then you become, I would say, you become an advanced procrastinator because you're studying. You're studying other people instead of studying your movements and growing and advancing in yourself. You have an opportunity right now to use a lot of things out there to advance your purpose. You have a goal. Figure out a way to accomplish that goal. Hey, look, you have a lack of resources. Okay, then figure out another way to accomplish that same goal with the lack of resources you have. I'll, okay, I'm gonna say this. All right, a lot of people don't know this, but my love and worship single, I'll tell you the truth. My love and worship single was built on GarageBand. It was quite it's a few songs I built on there, and I've been dropping tracks off of GarageBand. I build the drums, I play the instruments, I go in there and stuff, I do the harmonies and stuff like that. And some of you guys who are with your state of the art, um, um, $10.5 million studios are like, oh, no wonder it's down like that because I was trying to figure out how you got that sound. And I looked at this, I listened to this, like, I went in Logic and then I went in Pro Tools and I was trying to figure out how you got it so crisp. um, but anyways, I'm using that as an example. And this second single that is a part of the commercial, I'm dropping another single, and I hope that it'll be dropped before the end of the month. So we're dropping another single, and I hope you're looking forward to it. Jason McCauley and Cardina is also on it, and so I'm looking forward to this being like a dope January. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for episode 3. I hope it'll be a lot more fun and more informing this time around. I tried to be creative with it. So I hope you guys found it to be amusing and not confusing. I'm happy. I'm really happy. I'm really glad that we got to do this again. Episode 2 down in the books. Woo! So we're gonna be going into episode 3, and that's next Monday. Next Monday, okay? But I'm really excited to be talking about my book next week and just going over like taking a chapter like for each episode, and and then if I can kind of like squeeze in a little life on Mars there, I will. But I just was saying though, that thought though, just wondering like where would our minds go, if we don't have hope? So let's end on hope. Let's continue to believe. Let's not lose any sorts of hope when it comes to diving into our purpose. Life is strange. Like one of the things to learn a long time ago, life could be very strange because one day you're here, next day you're not, and the only thing you could do is just be very grateful, you know. Um, and I only want to say this just to kind of remind us of what it means to help from not going into. These are things that I believe that will help us from not going into another period of recession and all this other stuff that's happening around the world and hurt. My thing is this: let us do these things and act with wisdom. Like, let's go there and with wisdom. We've learned a lot of things that's happened over the years. A lot of stuff that we've done was a lot of people held on, and they hold on to their spending or cash and stuff like that in a way that it was not really for storing up. It was just more in a selfish way to not give more. And my thing is like, hey, look, let's just end that. Let's figure out new ways to give, figure out new ways to create and store our harvest. Figure out ways to be budget careful. Just build a budget, and check in on your friends and families and neighbors. Celebrate every win. And the number one thing above all, be kind. Be kind. I don't know who's going through what they're going through on Facebook. I could post something and someone would be like, oh my gosh, that was so inconsiderate and so insensitive. So be kind. This will help the world move. This will help us grow. And this will definitely help us to enrichly be a blessing to a lot of people. And I hope that you've enjoyed this show. Once again, my name is Kingsley Case. Some people who know me, they know me as Kingsley Charles Case. But my name is Kingsley Case. Give me a shout out. You can send me a message at kingsleycase@kingsleycase.com, or you can reach out at kingsleycase@gmail.com. Or if you want to give me another shout out, you can shout me out on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on X. I am on some platforms, man and ladies. And I just want you guys to know I'm thanking you in advance again for coming true, and soldiering through. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Grace, peace, and love.
You got the desires, yes you got all the ones. What would you do